Alright guys, so we're inside the Merc. This is a new one for most of us. Nice, that's a Nardi, a real genuine Nardi steering wheel. And I just got the little Mercedes badge for the middle of it. Quite like that actually. I never really got to use the car. I kind of went straight from buying it. I did this and I did a bit of a clean up and then went, do you know what, I'm actually going to just OM606 swap it. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. Let me see if I have what I need to show you. I don't. Bear me 2 seconds. So basically what I'm going to do with the dials is the engine that came out, sorry about all this mess. You can imagine it was a bit of a frenzy in the last little while to get this car up and going. So I just went through the gears, I went through forward and back on it, and the brakes are holding okay. Possibly need another bleed on the brakes. It's hard to know really until they start to bed in because they've been off the car for so long. But anyway, that's one or two things. You know, I went back and forth with it, felt kind of good. It kind of slams into drive a bit, but then I believe I don't have the vacuum lines hooked up to the pump yet, so you know that could be part to do with that. I just wanted to point out this. I'm keeping this lovely 80s punk radio. I'm trying to keep everything kind of 80s, or you know, kind of keep with all of that. So I'm not going to start drilling out dashes and stuff like that. I have a box for here. It is walnut. I don't know what I'm going to do about the walnut part of it, but I'm going to match the paint, or the leather paint that I've used it in a few times on the classic cars. Does a good job. If you can actually match the paint color pretty on the money for these, so I'm going to do that. And then I have the leather seats for the back are in the same grey. I might end up doing the same thing with that. I might end up paint matching them, but that's neither here nor there. That's not for now. So at the moment I'm looking at the dials and I'm seeing 237,000 miles. I believe that this 606 engine had about 220, 230 on it, so I kind of like that, so I'm going to keep that. This is the original petrol dials for the car. And I'm going to the economy gauge here. Apparently it's good for about 15 psi of boost. It basically works through a vacuum line. See it there? So, and as the engine's idle increased, it pushed air into it. So apparently it's good for that. I believe there is an adjustment that can be made as well in the back, but I daren't open it up to have a look. Maybe at some point I'll come across, you know, I like these Mercs, so maybe I'll come across and set dials one day in a scrapyard or something, or not scrapyard, but in a scrapped estate or something like that, because it has to be a state for the fuel economy, for the fuel capacity, full tank. So anyway, that's that. I have the diesel dials. I plugged them in. I know that the RPM reads accurate with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the RPM tacho out of the diesel, place it into this, and then these have these little paper slips. That's what I have in my hand here. And as you can see, they have your logos on it. Now, this car never had SRS. The older one did. There's two parts to this. One is the diesel glow light is something I need. So that's perfect. That's ideal. And then equally, I don't want an SRS logo on there, not for aesthetics or anything like that. Mainly, well, partly to do with aesthetics, I suppose, but mainly it's to do with I don't know how it would be in standing with the NCT if it didn't come on and off with the dash light, you know. So I know I could rig stuff up like that, but all I have to do here is I'm just going to cut along the SRS line. I'm going to cut and I'm going to just place these slot into the side. Just going to place that in there. And then I should have a glow light and a tacho on a petrol set of gauges. My economy can then be hooked up to the boost. I'm equally going to run a manual boost gauge. For the time being, I'm just going to run it in the glove box. Pop it open, have a look, see if I'm happy with what it's boosting at, close it up and forget about it. This then will tell me, I'll be able to work the two off each other and know exactly what this is. But let's say this tells me I got 15 psi. That's happy. I'm fine with that. I know it'll go up to around 20. I'm hoping for about 20, 22 psi. 20 psi I'll probably be happy enough with. 21. But if I know I'm getting 15, I'd be happy enough to know that. I know if I pop that open, I can see the full range, which would be, let's say, 20, 21. So that's all for the time being. I'm going to get to work on stripping out these. Apparently just come out with just basic screws to hold them in. Swap out that tacho, keep my mileometer fairly close to where it is, and pop this in. And then we should have a hybrid of the two, which would be nice. Anyway guys, I'll check in with you in a while. Okay guys, just a quick little update to the dials. When I was talking about hooking up the boost, I didn't realise that you had to change over the system from working from vacuum to pressure. Basically what you do is it wants to read on atmosphere, it wants to read it fully in the red. I basically took off the pin and flipped that to the end, to the opposite side. So now it takes about 15 psi to max it out. What I tried doing too was getting it to read, let's say halfway in between with a pump, holding that pressure on and then moving it to the back. I don't know how successful it is. I'll find out once I get it hooked in and everything like that. It might well be a case of that it'll only ever read 15 psi just from the spring pressure or something. I'm not sure. Anyway guys, just a little update. Alright, so just working on getting that lower kick panel out so I can change the ignition barrel. So that should be that. I know you can't tell any different, but I have the diesel rev counter in with the petrol gauges and everything like that, and then also, if I hold that down to the light, can you see it? I also have a glow. The glow might be green, as you can see it there, because there's a green gel behind it, but I still prefer it. Like I'm not going to change that. That won't bother me too much. Other things I got done, and basically I just kind of kept working, and maybe I should have talked more about it. So at the moment you can see I actually smashed this while I was working around with it. So I'm going to seal that up because it actually just broke on a seam, if you know what I mean, on a flanged seam or a lipped seam. So that will actually seal up fine, and I'll take that tape off it then. But basically I just shortened this. This pipe is plastic internally. Shortened it, and what I did was I actually heated it up with the heat gun, and then I could bend it back into that shape. So that's a good seal for that. Ran the factory 210 piece out, 3-inch stainless pipe that I had left over from the exhaust. And this is pretty much a real janky fucking setup. Sorry for cursing, but it is. I have this kind of bent bar in here, thread bar, and then I have what's basically a pipe clamp here. I don't like this. I'm gonna have to figure out something to solve that. I just didn't want to lose, a whole weekend to fabbing up a box or something, but that might be in the cards, if you know what I mean, on the cards. Pretty much everything else I think I've covered. The exhaust has a leak, as you've seen in the video previously. Seemingly it's quite common for those Mercedes flanges, that stock Mercedes flange. I know Diesel Pump UK make like a one with better clearances and everything. But it would mean I'd have to redo the flange part of the exhaust and take off the wrap and redo all that. So what I think I'm going to try doing first is I've got a sheet of exhaust gasket on the way over, that steel perforated stuff, and I'm thinking I'm going to try and make a ring gasket for it, because that stuff is quite spongy, if you know what I mean. Even when you take it out of an existing fit, it has this kind of retention to kind of go back and forth and expand and contract. And I think that what caused this leak is the movement of the engine and the tight clearances back further on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that gasket in there to tighten it up, and then I'm hoping that might prevent that leak. That leak only happens, this is what makes me think it's on the movement of the engine. It only happens when you blip the throttle. So if you blip the throttle and give it a few revs that way, it blows out smoke at the very beginning. If you build up your revs gently, not gently, but quick, but not rapid quick, it actually doesn't blow exhaust at all. So I think it is just that initial tweak of the engine is causing that to leak. That's pretty much it. Got everything else kind of sealed up and everything like that. So I'm going to get on wiring in the glow plug indicator, light, the glow plug ignition start for this, even though this does glow on the key. So I just tested it there. When I turn a key on, that does glow. But anyway, I'll wire in the ignition part for it as well. And that's pretty much it for that for today. And then let's see where it goes from there. Alright, I'll report back. Alrighty guys, so just a quick one. I'm working on the interior dials, as you know, and now I'm onto the instrument, the ignition barrel. So I was having a bit of an issue. You can see there's two of them here. Basically, I wasn't able to, I followed a couple of different online tutorials and stuff, and I could not get these barrels out. They were stuck in. The tutorial tells you to stick a pin down here of the right kind of size. It'll push the spring down and then you'll be able to just pull it out, and it just doesn't work like that. It didn't for me on these two. Maybe I'm doing something wrong considering I've got two of them that are stuck, but I felt the spring go down, went down, never came back up, and then these don't come off. So maybe it's a tamper thing, I don't know. Anyway, it's irrelevant. This one here has the key that I want to use because it's the key for the central locking, and I kind of wanted to keep two, or to keep the keys rather than run two different ignitions or two different keys. So what I did was, this one here is a diesel, a factory diesel one, and basically what it has on it is it has that actuator there. Basically all it is a pass through, and then when the cam, a little plastic cam that's inside here turns, it closes it off, and that's pretty much it. And as such, then that goes to your pump and then kills the pump. So what I did was, this is coming from a later model, like 94, 95, 94 I think, w124. So that has a parking brake lockout for your gearbox. I'll come back to that in a second. So basically what I did was I drilled out, these have the print. See, there's one there for if you had a left-hand drive or a right-hand drive. So they have the stamp on them. This is the one from an original petrol car. So what I did was I drilled out the section here to 12.5, and then I just basically drilled a 4mm or whatever, M4, tapped an M4 screw into there, and then that meant I could transfer this over. What I then had to do was I had to take off the switch at the back, and that exposed this area here, and on there you'll find two pieces of orange plastic and one white piece. This is the important part. So the orange piece basically kills the pump, basically actuates or it's cammed, so as it turns it pushes in this. That's pretty much it. There's two orange pieces, one of them clipped together, and what they do is they sandwich this plastic piece here, and this plastic piece is for your parking lock here, and it's a cam for that. But if you leave that in place, and I left it in place and I fitted it to the car, and then I couldn't get the key out. And the reason for that is because this was in place, so I had to take it all back out of the car, which is not that easy actually to fit these and take these out of w124s. I had to take it all back out of the car and then strip the barrel back down and then take that piece out. And now that I have a key that comes out of the ignition barrel. Perfect. So that's exactly what I wanted, and that's the same key that operates my central locking and everything like that. I've got multiple copies of it. The wife has one on hers, on her key thing, so anybody can drive this car then. So that's perfect. But I spent about an hour and a half trying to get these barrels out, and I couldn't do it. This probably did take me an hour and a half to do, realistically, because I had to fit it twice and all that. But it was definitely the wiser choice just to do that. I couldn't find much information. I found one kind of post on the forum about somebody who did something like this. It wasn't really about this. They actually just got 2 matching ones, but they removed that white cam because they were going from a newer car, or newer ignition barrel, to the older style without the lockout. So that's the only way I could find a post online about it. Everything else, I asked questions on the forum. People weren't kind of getting what I mean, and there wasn't much information about it. So I hope that this helps somebody, you know, because it was information hard got, if you know what I mean. Maybe not too complicated, but definitely hard got. Anyway, guys, I'll check back in a little bit. All right, so we are P30 is green and white. 15 is pink and white. Red is 30. 15X is green and looks like a pinky white. Another 30, which is another red. A pure violet is 50. And then we have a 15 ore, which is a yellow and white. Okay. Alright guys, so the simple things in life. Got that ignition wired up. Key comes out. Key goes in. It's obviously glowing now at the moment, and then nice. Believe it or not, this was the more difficult of the jobs to do. I can't understand why. It just really was. Like, I ended up unbolting the whole steering column just to get in at it. It was so awkward. The way I went about it, I'm just going to turn off the car so you can hear me a bit clearer. The way I went about it was, obviously you have to strip the kick panels, everything like that. Now that was these were mainly stripped so that I could get the wiring done for my ignition feed for the glow and my ignition light. I had to pull the dials out. Also needed to get the vacuum lines through, so I had to end up putting them through the same. There's a massive grommet back here that does just the vacuum, and there's loads of spares on it, so if you just get like a long needle pliers from the inside of the engine bay, you can actually just pull it right off. And then I actually fed through a cable this side, put my 2 vacuum hoses onto that and pulled it right through. So that was that part. There's my steering lock working. So then for the actual ignition barrel, I took it out loads of times, really awkward. I actually took out like this little rubber diaphragm and everything for the ducting. That's sitting there. You don't need to do that, by the way. That's why I'm not going to go into detail about that. But basically, there's 2 bolts just here and here. You crack them loose, and then you've got loads of down, up, side. It is fragile, so I wouldn't go reefing on it or anything or pulling on it too much. But that meant I could then slide out this and slide back in this relatively easy. I say relatively easy, still quite difficult. Because if your approach angle is anyway slightly off, the tolerances are so tight. If your approach angle is anyway slightly off, it just won't do it. It'll bog down, it won't move for you at all. You have to pull it back out and then get your angle just right, and when you get it just right, it'll just slot right in really, really easy and quick. So anyway, that I went through what I did to convert that and everything. It was just really, this was actually one of the more difficult jobs. I'm 2 evenings into it, and my evenings are only, let's say, an hour here and an hour there. So maybe probably 2.5 hours, maybe even 3 hours into this, believe it or not, just because it was so such an awkward access point and awkward to work on and everything like that, and trial and error. So learn from my mistakes. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Alright guys, so just trying to get through the vacuum system on the w124. basically you have a little manifold back here. I hope you can see that. Yeah, exactly. I blanked that off just with a screw. That's probably not the nicest finish, but anyway, that's fed by a clear pipe that gives your supply for your headlights and stuff. I'm not fully sure. I just know that the one that I pulled, which is this one here, let me see if you can see it, that one there, that's the one that leads to the eco gauge, and then I pulled the main supply for this, which leads the whole way around nicely to the location right here. So that's perfect. I can just pipe that straight into the EGR delete piece that I put on the bottom of the intake manifold. Has a little offshoot on that. So that's kind of spot on for that. And what I did was I ran a black pipe then just down and around through here and over to my my one-way valve booster here. So I have that's your ignition feed, that is that manifold that we just seen coming off. I just pulled one of these factories, the factory T things or junctions off some of the pipe I had pulled out of the w124 that I got the some of the parts from. So pull that out anyway, and then I have just a black line here that I was able to find in the car, and then I also have the actuator vacuum or boost pressure actuator line. So that's going to come along here with the pump line and then come into here. Obviously that's going to be on the same T as the boost gauge. I know I could probably have shortened all of this before anybody says it, but it's nice to have the pipe coming through here and kind of have a traceable direct line over, so I can always just remove the boost gauge and plug it straight in if I need to. Anyway, the other thing was I put on the shifter vacuum actuator here. The one with the one-way valve on it is going straight to the gearbox, and then basically I have I don't know if you can see this here, I have that piece comes out, and then we have one at the back here, and that's on a Y, and then that will take the black feed, come back over here, that's coming over this. So I didn't want to just have these wires or these lines. This is a soft line and that's a hard line, but I didn't want to leave it just kind of like that and dress it along here with some panel ties and cable ties. So what I've done is I've got the heat shrink that I would normally use for cable and stuff. The original stuff that you get off a Merc has this plastic covering, so I'm basically just going to use the heat shrink and feed it all along that. I don't know yet if I'll heat it down. I might just actually heat it down onto it, or maybe not, I don't know. But either way, I'm going to then, that'll leave me one solid bigger cable or vacuum line just to come around here and then in, you know. So that will be a neater finish, and then I'll be able to just dress it along there with some panel ties. They're little tiny cable ties, same as well with that there. I don't have any at the moment, but I'll get some. Anyway, that's that. Then I'll be able to hook up the boost gauge inside, put the dials back in, and put the manifold on here. Then I have to just plot the steering linkages. I should be good to go. We'll go for our test drive then. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Alright guys, so just a little addition to what I'm talking about there, about those vacuum lines. I found out after I stopped recording that if you went with that setup I had, you actually wouldn't be able to turn off the car. So what I ended up doing was I ended up splitting that little rubber manifold you seen coming off the boost pipe, the brake booster pipe, and fitting a one-way valve in between that, so that the brown pipe gets a full feed going back and forth unobstructed, and then the two pipes that go, let's say, over to the shifter actuator, and where does the other one go? The other one goes to that manifold for the lights and the interior stuff. That there got a one-way valve so that the air can go into it and then not come back out, which is perfectly fine because it'll only ever operate at a certain pressure, it'll never just keep pushing in pressure, if you know what I mean. So that that's okay, that works as it should, and that solved the problem. I just got a simple 6mm one-way valve, or check valve, whatever you call it, non-return valve, from a Motor Factors, and that solved that problem. Alright guys, thanks for watching, appreciate it. Bye.